IVM.
Welcome to a very special episode of Think Fast and Advertising is Dead. We're doing a bit of a crossover. We haven't done a crossover and it was about time. We're almost close to a year since we started Think Fast, or have we crossed a year? I don't know. Suchita, has it been a year?
We're getting close to
met.
it. I think our first episode was sometime in November. We have
Just for clarity, guys,
oh my God,
we have
this
both
is like Karan Arjun,
never
bro.
met. Even pre-Think Fast, till date, we were supposed to meet in real life the day my son was born, because my son was supposed to be born a couple of days later, but he decided to say, no meeting yet, wait for it. So hence we have not met yet, but eventually we shall soon enough, because I'm going to be in the Delhi.
Dude, you should
I was
make
in
a
Delhi
trip
on
to
Wednesday,
Delhi.
but I had a morning evening, so I didn't ping.
What a little piece of shit, Varun. I would have come in
I was in a studio doing a shoot. I had makeup on.
would do that.
Shit. I was dolled up for this whole vibe that was going on.
Oh my God, even more Sasta
Yes.
Hrithik Roshan.
So to all AID
lovely.
listeners, this is obviously a different vibe, but if you haven't started listening to Think Fast, it's about time that you subscribe to Think Fast, because what we drill into is a lot of, while we talk about the deeper stuff on advertising is dead, Think Fast is giving you a weekly update on all things business, startups and media, which both of us do. So we thought this episode, as we go beyond the initial stories of the week, we're going to have this interesting scenario where we have not technically introduced ourselves and what our backgrounds are to our audience in 1 year. So we thought, we missed this. So let's do that by me asking Suchita questions, and then she will ask me questions about our individual journeys and why we ended up here on a Saturday recording this podcast. And for all Think Fast listeners, you get to know a little bit more of us and more Yas Queens happening here. But beyond this slightly more sober start to an episode, which is not necessarily what happens on Think Fast, what has happened this week? What is happening?
So much and nothing at all. Let us first start with Mr. Elon Musk has bought Twitter / is in the general direction of purchasing Twitter at the original price. The past 4 months were a total waste of everyone's collective time. What did you think of this dilly-dallying? He obviously got his ass kicked by the general judicial system of
So I was actually
the
listening
USA.
to Pivot, interestingly the podcast, which was the frame of reference for our podcast. And they were talking about this. And they said that what would have happened this week is what normally before these kind of cases kind of go to court, you have these mock trials that you set up where you actually put him through that basis. I feel that they felt that maybe they did a few of those mock ones, knew this is going to go totally sideways and decided, let's just not even put ourselves through that. Let's go ahead with the deal, is what Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher felt. But I feel at the end of the day, you don't want Elon Musk to own Twitter. You don't want him to waste his time doing this. You want him to make humanoid robots. You want him to take us to Mars. You want him to take the whole battery revolution, the EV revolution ahead. As someone who's seen the work and tried to ignore to whatever extent I can the nonsense of Elon Musk, I would rather he focus on the work which he can really give the world. Twitter feels like a random thing he wants to do while he's taking a dump in the morning.
Distraction. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I think he definitely seems like the kind of man who can multitask. And it's just one of those the man can have 10 kids with 6 different women. I'm sure he can figure out a way to, run these multiple different companies, hire the right people to, front end a lot of the things. I don't know. I think the conflict that I have with this is, if your general sort of underlying thesis is that, media needs to be more independently operated, having someone who's a bit of a, sycophant, almost like Elon Musk at the helm of this is a little scary. What I'm interested in seeing is, what is the leadership that he puts into place, right? So now God knows if, Mr. Parag Agarwal will continue at Twitter or not. Seems unlikely. But it'd be interesting to see the leadership that he puts into place. And, to be honest, now is Twitter worth 44 billion, $54 a share? Is it not? That time will tell. Their revenues definitely don't reflect that anywhere at all. But I do think, I don't know, there's a part of me that's rooting for Twitter, because Twitter has done what is very difficult to do. And I know we're going to talk about this with respect to another company later on in the episode, but Twitter has really become the sort of nucleus of all tech, journalistic, startup, political sort of content, right? Yeah, and there's a lot of like power associated with it, and there's a lot of fairly interesting ways of like monetization that could potentially be associated with it. So I think as a consumer tech and a media tech junkie, I'd love to see this platform be able to deliver more in terms of revenue and monetization. And you never know, man. Maybe Musky Musk can put some muscle.
There was also an
into
interesting
the
thing I
Twitter
saw.
machine.
MKBHD, the OG tech YouTuber, got access to the edit button on Twitter. They're testing out. And so he made a small YouTube short showing that it's actually like the way it's been structured. So you can actually see all the past versions. It's not like it's suddenly like deleted and nobody can see what you tweeted last. So even when you retweet it, it actually has the thing to see past versions. You do an arrow button down and you see all past. So basically he made 2 typos. After he made a typo on purpose so he could correct it. And while doing that, he made a second typo by mistake. And so that actually shows quite clean. So I like the UI design. This could actually be the best way to do it. It takes away that one big issue that I have with typos, because I do that typo tweet and I'm like, oh my God, I have to put this entire thread out here again. So I feel, Twitter seems to be on an interesting track right now. Yeah, but isn't it like tragic that the most discussed feature, 15 years later is still a goddamn edit button? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we're supposed to be on Mars at this point. Which is why I'm like, he should not be on Twitter. He should be focusing on that stuff. But speaking of Mars, considering Indian roads are like driving on Mars, and some of those are on some of those are on autos. Segue. Vataj. Some of those are on autos. Do you read the news about Ola, Uber, and Rapido? They've been told that their auto services are illegal in Bengaluru. This is whole like auto drivers union is going to launch the Namma Yatri app. Like just basically our Yatri for those who don't get what Namma means. But what do you think of this? And also there's been a bit of background to this, right? Is that they were supposedly doing a minimum, and Jalasmi told us this before we start recording, is that they were charging a minimum for 100 even if the fare was about, I think, 40, 50 rupees as well, putting some service charge, etc. on it. And a bunch of people pointed that out, and that's where the whole thing kind of spiraled from. But this is not new for someone like Uber. Yep. Yeah. Or Ola. I mean, they've gotten into issues with all types of unions multiple times in the past. And, like you were saying, it's not like an India thing, right? Yeah. It's happened globally as well. So I don't know. I think this is like a bit of a meh as per me. Yeah, I didn't really care about the story much. I think the question that I'm interested in is I wonder how much autos contribute to their business. I can't imagine it being significant, either in terms of like revenue or, gross bookings or any of that. Yeah. Definitely not margin, given that autos are typically used for short distances, right? And the use case / the real money maker in businesses like Ola and Uber is your longer distances, because that's where the margins, gross bookings, etc. triple up considerably. So I don't know the numbers over here, but, but the article doesn't say what percentage it is. And also, if you look at the number, it's quite low, right? Because they were charging a minimum of 100 versus the minimum fare is basically 30 rupees for first 2 kilometers on the actual meter. So I gather where the issue came from, but this whole minimum fare thing has been around for a while. So I agree. It's not like the biggest news over there. In big news, actually, Process backed out from a deal that would have made PayU. It was massive. This is a done deal from what I assumed it was, but suddenly this just went sideways. Yeah. Do you not remember me showing off about how right I have been about my fintech aggregation prediction in December of last year? And this particular acquisition would have been huge, because again, the value of the deal was, technicality is one. Also, like, dude, markets are like choppy AF. Everyone is like freezing hires, cutting teams left, right, and center. There's this like, joke online, right? Which is the new quiet quitting is quiet firing. Because organizations, especially these larger ones that have, more like reputational risks at stake, are slowly letting go of people. I'm digressing, but point being that it's not unbelievable because your markets are just not supporting a $4.7 billion deal. What I find a little strange is, I don't know, usually in scenarios like this, people use, quote unquote choppy markets as a way to like lowball. I think what's interesting about this is like there was no like, it seems like there was almost no like negotiation on the table. It was, whoops, sorry, not happening anymore. And I mean, it's really difficult to pull your mind out of a acquisition mindset, especially if you're a founder. So I can't imagine any of this being easy for them or their teams. Yeah, also because you go through a certain process, right? If you're at this stage where we've gone through the process, you almost, I would gather they already would have kind of been embedded together in many ways. gets tricky. But again, this is what markets do, right? Sometimes the timing is all that matters, and sometimes you just got to kind of move ahead. But I don't think PayU in the long run, because PayU is a solid company. I think that the good part for them is they're not one of those who can't not do this without the acquisition, but I would have just kind of set them up for a much bigger playground in that sense of the word. Yeah. What else is happening? Honey Singh and Miling Gaba dropped a new song, Paris Ki Trip. Jalasmi is trying to f with us this week. Have you heard Paris Ki Trip, Suchita?
Do I look like I've heard? Actually, I do look like
you look like you heard Paris Ki Trip.
Especially after the amazing remix that I played as a prelude to this recording, which, ladies and gents, I will share the link of the song as a part of my recommendations.
That's your recommendation actually this week.
Dude, what a great song. But listeners, will get to it all the way at the end. So tell me more about Paris Ki Trip by Yo-Yo Honey Singh.
I have no idea. Basically, every Honey Singh song since his return has been the same, which is basically, why is this a song? But with that sound effect. But yes, I have no idea why this is a story. Jalasmi Stand just pull a fast one on us. But what else has happened? Ray Dalio is exiting from Bridgewater.
My God. I mean, actually, Legend. This is not like a my God thing because man was getting old. But I just think he's done it really well. You know what I mean? It's like the opportune time, succession plans been sort of laid out. And I think the thing that I found interesting about this is he's taken away a lot of the rights that, say, for example, like a chairman, or a managing director or someone in a slightly more loftier position would have. So, for example, he's given up his co-CIO role along with his voting rights, which I think is good to do because otherwise what ends up, humans are humans, right? You always have this nagging thing of interfering. So it seems like he's taking a very nice, clean break from running Bridgewater, but what a freaking empire this man has built. And to think that he's come from absolutely nothing at all. For those of you who haven't read his book Principles, you should pick it up and check it out.
I was just going to ask you, what do you think of the book? I find it super interesting. Don't agree with everything, but it's super interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a little prescriptive. So it's a little this is right, this is wrong. And also I think it's very idealistic. So for example, this whole, fundamentally, I love the idea of, feedback loops and creating frequent enough feedback loops for people you work with. But I think it takes a type of person, a type of temperament to, you know what I mean? To take that much feedback and actually do something about it. Whatever, I can go on and on talking about his book and, but good book, good read nonetheless.
There's another thing which you pointed out, and I've been looking at this brand for a while, which is Liquid Death.
Yes.
It's a super interesting brand, right? They're a water startup valued at $700 million. I noticed it because I saw a lot of YouTubers who I follow internationally who always have a Liquid Death can, and I was always intrigued to know what is in that. What are they drinking? Yep. Such a great story.
Yeah, I think great story and also great timing, I would say. I think they really nailed their timing because, we're kind of at the peak of all things woke, right? And they sort of, double down on that, say no to single-use plastic and obviously aluminum cans, though they do have a larger carbon footprint in their manufacturing. They recycle much easier and much faster than, plastic. So I think there were a lot of, good things happening at the right time. Another really interesting insight, which I read on this newsletter that I subscribed to called Banana Capital, is that one of the key drivers of Liquid Death's success, obviously hindsight is 2020, but one of the key drivers seems to be that it looks like alcohol. So I don't know if you've seen the can of White Claw and all these other seltzers, hard seltzers that have come up in the US, but Liquid Death literally looks like one of those, seltzer cans. So it feels like alcohol. You feel like you're doing something risque, but it's actually just pani. Yeah, but that
and lots of sales in music festivals is what I remember reading about a while back.
And great partnerships too. They partnered with Wiz Khalifa as a part of his tour, and Wiz Khalifa's tour bus had this giant Liquid Death, sticker on it. So yeah, good timing, virality, partnerships.
I was talking to a founder a while back, and I know we need to go for a break, and especially from an Indian context, I said, okay, 1 second, while you're internationally talking about all these, everything from, let's say, tin cans being used for water to, I would say, even I think it's called Just Water, or one of those, which is, I think, the one which Jaden Smith started, if I remember right, which is more a Tetra Pak kind of a thing for water. What this founder was telling me was that India's recycling system is largely centered around plastic. So even if in India you try to bring one of these things in, those aren't as easily recyclable.
How interesting.
Plastic is. I don't. This is literally. I don't know this for a fact, but I thought that was a very interesting insight because This is the founder who runs a company which makes stuff which comes in plastic bottles, right? And I was talking to him saying, why can't you move away from that? And he said, this is the thing. This is the most recyclable thing we have in our country. But I'm like, it's still plastic.
Yeah.
So maybe something to dig into at some point in time. I'm going to make a note. It'd be a good thing to kind of tap into how the recycling market is going. And I know a few marketplaces that have really been focusing on the eco-friendly stuff. So might be a good thing to talk about. But we need to go in for our first break. Like Jalasmi has told us to. We're going to do one segment of stories and then one segment of asking each other questions. But before that, we'll take a break and let some advertising do its job. Welcome back to Think Fast. Where are you feeling festive today or this week? Have you been festive?
I feel like I have no option but to say yes to this question.
I know. I am not festive. I hate this time of the year.
I hate this.
I am the Grinch.
It's raining in Delhi. It's disgusting.
It's raining here also. I'm like, what is this thunderstorm? I was like going to go to like IKEA today and it started raining.
Wild. Yeah, I have a pimple on my cheek, guys. This is like the opposite of feeling freaking festive. But in any case, what is the story about?
How have festive sales been this year? It's the time of the year when on one end you see everybody's advertising is exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's like that one big catalog on your newspaper or everywhere
Purple,
else.
Yellow and orange seem to be ruling the roost.
Same thing. But how have the sales been? Has it been that big this year? Doesn't seem like.
Yep. It has. So before we get into numbers, obviously one source for all the source material that we guys are going to cover over the next couple of minutes is Red Sears report, which they release every year, just to cover all the larger sales, what worked, what didn't work, what were the wins, losses, so on and so forth. So just quickly running through numbers, e-commerce platforms reported nearly 5.4x growth in their overall daily sales. E-com shipment volumes also grew 3x over business as usual days during the sale periods. I think, a couple of salient points that stood out for me were tier 2 and tier 3 rallied up in terms of demand drivers for this festive season. In fact, one of the most interesting things, and I'd be interested to get a handle of the data to back this up, but as per Red Sears, Meesho has displaced Amazon in overall volumes with 21% share, second only after Flipkart, which again, sort of like explains this rise and resurgence of, all tier 2, tier 3 related communications. I think two things that stood out for me was obviously this big Meesho piece. And the second one was, newer regions contributing to sales growth.
I think 68% jump in orders from 2021 supposedly for Meesho. And that's actually been, that's like a huge jump. What I'm actually interested to know, and I don't know, I'm going to run through all the data that we have, is that how much of the festive sale growth has also happened on the non-e-com side? Because one of the things we've been seeing over time as things have opened up has been the fact that people are going back to stores a lot more.
Yeah.
As much as they are kind of still buying stuff online, it's no longer just an online, let's focus on online and not on offline as much kind of a game, right? Offline's really kind of back. So, and I was also taking into account the fact that Facebook and Google advertising for D2C businesses, especially performance marketing, has been a pain in recent times because no one's been able to target, right? It'd be interesting to see how that's kind of panned out, because if there is this much growth, and considering how the market environment is, I'm wondering how are the numbers so high?
I mean, I don't think it's an either or. So for example, if you, for instance, look at the categories that have performed fairly well. So apart from smartphones, people from non-metros also shop largely for unbranded fashion and accessories, which which usually are very retail heavy, but that retail usually doesn't get accounted for because who knows what the GMV of Sarojini Nagar is, right? Or like of a Sunday market on a street is. And obviously this quote-unquote category of unbranded fashion and accessories is the kind of category that performs fairly well on, say, like a Flipkart fashion or, a Meesho or, maybe certain subcategories of Snapdeal and the likes. The other category that also seems to have picked up fairly well is beauty and personal care. Nykaa, interestingly enough, never discloses their numbers or talks about growth outside of obviously their quarterly results. So it'll be interesting to see how, their OND reporting shapes up closer to end of December. But, I know there's a lot of like hoopla around this quote-unquote Bharat shopping. But one really interesting data point, which I've highlighted as well, is with around, and I'm quoting from this document, ladies and gents, but with around 48% of consumers shopping more during festive season than the rest of the year. Apparently, roughly 50 to 55 million shoppers contributed to the GMV and growth in festive season sales. Now, this is interesting because this number is not
what
like
is
100 to 200.
Gross merchandise value, right? GMV?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, like the number of 50 to 55 million shoppers is not huge. You know what I mean? Like you'd assume a country where, you have 400, 500 million odd Indians, using mobile devices, so having access to the internet, you'd assume this base would grow over a period of time. But it seems like your same like top 70 million Indians continue contributing to all things e-commerce, which is where there's that whole debate of Amazon strategy versus Flipkart strategy. But let us not bore our listeners with more, data points. And
we'll see what Dangerous brings. Dangerous and Diwali, what are they going to bring to these trends?
Yes.
Dangerous. I never knew it was Dhanteras. I thought it was something like Dangerous kind of a thing.
Oh my God.
South Indian problem.
Of course.
But speaking of money, Cred and UPI, finally.
We were not speaking of money.
We were speaking of money.
Okay, related to Dhanteras. Sure.
Dhanteras
okay, Cred and UPI.
Gold and money, same thing.
You.
Yes, Cred and UPI. Cred has finally launched their UPI-based scan and pay option. Very late in the day. I would have expected this to happen much earlier. I have heard rumors for a while that Cred was trying to launch their own credit card, but I guess at some level this made more sense. UPI is far more embedded now across the country. It's almost like I can't remember the last time I've taken out my credit card, even though I have one, because I just find it simpler to just use my UPI app in that sense of the word. So it's great. And they're also doing great things to incentivize. They're giving a lot of like crazy cashbacks and discounts and everything else. You've been experimenting. I haven't used the app for UPI. I think you used it a little bit. How has your user experience been?
My God. So let me start by saying that sadly, I am not a Cred user, but Dhruv, as an experiment once this big UPI announcement happened. First and foremost, I want to start by saying that they created a lot of like hoopla on Twitter, and like the outcome of that hoopla was kind of like, you know what I mean? Like it was a little like, ye sab karke aap matlab, like UPI integration basically kar rahe ho. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was a little like you made this sound larger than life, but this is like, basic and easy to, and not easy to execute by any barometer, but fairly like elementary things. So long story short, we guys were playing around with Cred's feature. And obviously because Dhruv is cheap, I'm referring to my husband over here, guys. He transferred, he Cred paid me 2 rupees and got a 3 rupee cash back. Which incidentally, by the way, Google and all have stopped doing. So, like even when WhatsApp had launched payments, and when Google had launched, when GPay was going all out with their customer acquisition, all these guys went psycho giving cashbacks, freebies, this, that, and the other. Now, obviously, all these guys are focusing on profitability, getting their, unit economics in place, blah, blah, bullshit. Cred seems to have like swooped in and said, hold my beer, guys. While y'all are like saving cash money, I'm going to bring...
Let me give money out.
Yes, especially to the 1%, which we thought would not necessarily need more money at this point. But
I'll try this 2 rupees thing. I want to try it for fun.
Yeah,
I think I'll send Pooja 3 rupees and she will throw 3 rupees back on my face.
Yeah. No, but before I get into my, as you can tell, the coffee is hitting. Before I get into my long spiel about, the things that I like about what Cred's done, what are your 2 cents on? Is this too late in the day, or was this just one of those hona hi tha, good you came about
it was
this?
one of those hona hi tha pieces. It also feels like a very Cred thing to do, to kind of, really focus on cashbacks or like just like discounts, etc. That's been one of their core things they've really pushed for on the app as well. I've bought occasionally from the Cred app, but I have a lot of friends who use the Cred app and they buy most of the things they do off the Cred app itself. So it makes sense. Feels a little late in the day to do it. I have a feeling it's because of the whole delayed credit card launch and they must have just swapped plans is what I think. But I don't get why this was this late. That's been the big question in my head. Saying what delayed this so much? Because it wouldn't have been that complex to make a UPI payment part, a part of Cred. So there must have been some reasoning behind it, or they just didn't focus on it. That's my POV.
Yeah, obviously I'm not a fintech expert, which I have said multiple times on multiple different episodes, but like I think the one thing that I really, and this is, I want Cred to be successful for many reasons, but like I think one of the big reasons why I hope Cred's like $6.5 billion valuation amounts to something is because unlike a lot of startups in India, specifically those that are focused around tech, Cred has really taken an audience-first approach to product building, right? Yeah. On day one, they said we're going to accumulate the users and then we'll sort of, figure out monetization of the users, which is a very like Instagram, Meta, Snapchat Pinterest. Like it's a very media strategy, right? Let me accumulate the users and then figure out monetization, from these cohort of consumers. And the reason I am saying this more specifically in the case of Cred is because they've been very clear about who their consumer is. They haven't necessarily digressed, from who their user is, despite, scale requirements, valuation justification requirements, so on and so forth. So I think the thing that I really like about them is I'm sure they must have had a lot of pressures to make that $6.5 billion valuation make sense. They figured out ways around it without necessarily compromising on the person who they're talking to. So, like, just to give you a very simple example, I'm not a Cred user, but I do keep looking at the app to see, okay, what's new, what are they doing that's interesting, so on and so forth. They've obviously simplified their app a lot. I remember earlier it used to be super complicated with that weird control, game console rubbish in one corner. Yeah. So they seem to really simplify their app. But you know what I mean? Like, it's still just the interface makes it for the lack of a better
descriptor, beautiful interface,
elevated experience. Like, it's very, it would be wrong for me to compare it to Apple because they're like poles apart, but you know what I mean? Like,
it's just very well thought through in terms of design, and just a clear example of design making it seem so much more premium, such a better experience. I agree with you 100% on that front.
And oriented around a type of consumer and a type of customer need. So I think that's going to be my 2 cents on all things Cred and their delayed UPI launch.
So we have one more story before we're going for break, which is the whole Meta ads. Not ads which are Meta, but ads on the platforms that Meta owns. Wow, I can't believe I came up with that on the fly. But and how that's going to affect not just what's happening here. Meta's rolling out new ad placements and formats, which is anyway bound to happen. They've been a little slower than normal in adding in more kinds of ad formats onto Instagram. They really want to, I'm sure, because that is the platform for the future for them in so many ways. Because they still haven't figured out how to make WhatsApp really monetizable. So how do you see this whole piece kind of coming on? I know you have strong opinions about this. So I'm just going to let you unleash now. Unleash.
Oh my God. You have taken me out of my cage, guys. No, so, Instagram becoming clusterfuckery of ads was first and foremost like bound to happen because it's almost like Facebook doesn't know how to do anything else. You know what I mean? Like, advertising is in their blood. But the problem with Facebook is they do ads so badly. But before we get into, unnecessarily bashing Meta, I actually think the biggest loser in all of this are creators on Instagram, because Instagram is a platform that, not to sound very like, Mother India about it, but it's very like, take. I don't know what the platform gives. Quite unlike YouTube, for example, right? And ladies and gents, if you heard, I think the episode before the last one, we spoke about YouTube Shorts' monetization, where, if you literally just compare YouTube to TikTok to Snapchat to Instagram, YouTube gives money back, even if it may seem insignificant. For example, in the case of Indian creators, where CPMs are unfortunately just that low because, India is a DAO-rich, cash-poor country, at least YouTube gives back. I think the problem with Instagram is you see so many creators spending so much energy in building so much content for this platform, but you get screwed in all directions, right? You get screwed because your reach goes for a toss. You get screwed because the people who followed you out of the goodness of their hearts will never see your content, especially as you become bigger. The other weird thing about Instagram, and again, because TikTok's not here, I don't have a point of comparison, but basically after you hit a certain number of followers, right, like 200k, 300k followers, most of your followers who start following you thereafter are like randos. Like, there is no community building, there is no like clarity on who this consumer is. I've seen like popular Instagrammers go from 1 million to 6.5, 7 million, 10 million followers, like in a really short period of time. And why? It's just because your content's being circulated, and the thing that you stood so strongly for just doesn't seem to apply anymore the bigger you get. So unlike YouTube, Instagram, unfortunately, is one of those platforms where the bigger you get, the more irrelevant you are. And if you take that, right, and you marry it with a cacophony of ads, you're basically telling creators that, guess what? I really don't give a shit about all the work that you put into your content and all the followers that you've accumulated, because I'm Instagram, I'm self-serving, and as long as I can showcase ads in the middle of your stories, that's all I really give a shit about. So I don't know, man. I can go on and on about, my rant on how like the biggest losers in all of this are creators. But as a creator, aap hame tipni do.
So I've actually See the interesting side of Instagram, because I went from 30,000 followers way back in June when I took a certain call in terms of just overall strategy of simplification, and have gone up to 193,000 as of today. Right, it's been an interesting ride since June.
That's because you post thirst craps.
I do not post thirst traps, guys. My thirst traps are so occasional, and they're not even thirst traps. Literally, if I've gone to a pool, it's a photo with me being topless.
You little liar, dude! Because of you, women in Kanpur are having a good time. Basically, that has
because Sasta Hrithik Roshan.
Of course.
Actually, my mother asked me, "Are you okay with being called Sasta Hrithik Roshan?" My mother asked me this question 2 days ago. But what's been interesting is that. So there are a few things that happen to Instagram, right? One is, I feel across all platforms, we've gone from this follower-based platform to algorithm-driven platform, which means followers after a point of time don't actually matter as much as how much your reach is. So as long as the reach and engagement are the two metrics to focus on, you keep those really high, you kind of work on what's working there and kind of building a content basis that in many cases. That's what really gives you scale. And that's not just an Instagram thing, it's a TikTok thing. It started from there. It's going to be the reason why, even YouTube Shorts and YouTube kind of are pushing in that direction. What's been the weird part for Instagram is they are rebuilding the app while figuring out what the app is. So for instance, someone I follow who's a creator out of the US who basically is this more in the wellness space. I just got a notification saying now they're accepting subscription-based communities. And I clicked on it. I was interested seeing what this is. So basically, this guy basically teaches you how to stretch. And I, being an old person, look at videos where I learn how to stretch and do yoga things and all that stuff. Because I have
Lies.
Old person.
You want to practice more thirst traps.
More thirst traps.
For Sunita in Kanpur.
For Sunita in Kanpur. Yes. And what's been interesting with this whole piece is that you can get exclusive content. You get access to one-on-one chats. You get access. So it's basically OnlyFans. If you look at it. So the problem Instagram has, I feel, isn't just the ad formats. I feel that the ad formats could have come in much earlier, and as Jealous Me is kind of popping and saying, guys, go for a break. But it's also the fact that you're rebuilding an app while figuring out how to monetize it, yet retain some of its old charm, yet make it TikTok, but also compete with YouTube. That is the problem.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with the platform itself because as a creator, I have figured ways that it works really well for me. Some things which are super irritating because they're literally building it on the fly. So it's too many bugs half the time. But most creators in India, post TikTok being banned, took one clear strategy. And I feel for a lot of them, that's really worked. They are not a one platform creator anymore. Everybody's also on YouTube. Someone's also on LinkedIn. You're also on, plus being on Instagram. No one's sticking to one platform anymore because no one trusts any platform to not change overnight and suddenly take that away from them. TikTok taught people that. But I know we need to go for the break, but I remember that you had another point is even publishers, right? Publishers also going to suffer from this kind of happening because how are they going to be able to hold this together?
No, but the reason why I have such a strong opinion on why creators are getting screwed is because who did Facebook screw, man? It screwed publishers. I remember when, LBB started as a side hustle, back in the day, our biggest platform for growth was Facebook, and with a lot of love, care, effort, you accumulate these followers, you accumulate these subscribers, you create all this great content, and obviously you use that content to drive clicks back to your, website, app, whatever else. You remember the furor that happened in between 2014 to 2017 where every single publisher under the sun was livid at Facebook for, first and foremost,
you have to promote your own content even though you have followers.
And dude, one is that second, creators are the reason why these platforms exist. Because if there was no content on these platforms, no one would come. And Facebook, especially back in the day, a lot of the content that was being created was this newsy, entertainment, lifestyle-y type of content, right? I don't know if you remember, but everyone from Atlantic to New York Times to, Daily Mail, everyone was pissed about Facebook clamping down on organic reach. And obviously then everyone figured their life outside of Facebook and then, moved on to more proprietary audience building, switch around their business model. The point that I'm getting to is the reason why I have such a strong opinion on why Facebook's advertising mechanism and now Meta's advertising mechanism is so screwed up because I think every single publisher has been at the receiving end of, getting
It's abrupt changes.
It's abrupt changes.
Yeah.
It's also unfair. You know what I mean? Either on day one say ki boss.
Do you realize that you never say that about YouTube? Because it feels like whatever YouTube is doing is largely, it seems in sync with what they always do. Very rarely does that alter too much. There are alterations.
You know why? Because YouTube knows that it's a three-sided marketplace. Facebook and Meta and Instagram are in denial of the fact that whether they like it or not, they are a three-sided information marketplace, right? One side, and one of these sides is the people who are creating content on your platform. And if you don't give them the opportunity to grow, at some point it's going to bite you in the ass the same way it's bitten like Facebook in the ass. So I don't know, man. My 2 cents to creators, if any of them even listen to Think Fast, which I'm sure, I'm hoping a bunch of them do, is like build a really, really, really strong brand. Because, when the dust settles, the only thing that survives is like really great brands. And, 2 examples, one great example rather is New York Times, who, through the duration of their existence has really focused on being a top-notch brand. And that's what's helped them survive the, ups and downs of Facebook this and Meta that and IG this and, Twitter that and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think this part can kind of go on, but I feel the learning also is the fact that you got to be able to stick a scenario where you don't rely on any platform for your community as much as you rely on yourself and find your own way. Even if it's you building Kabutar Express, like, can pigeons get you to your community? Sounds like an upbeat idea, but you never know. It might come true. But
try it,
away from Kabutars, Kabutar Express. From Salman Khan is the co-founder from Maine Pyar Kiya.
Oh my God. Time for a break? Time for the next section.
Time for a break. We'll come back when we ask you the questions on Tum aaye kahan se ho is what we're going to ask. But right after this break. Welcome back to Think Fast, where this is now a weirdly AID kind of a scenario where we're going to ask each other questions on our own journeys. The context of why we're doing this is a few things. One is Suchita recently went through getting acquired, and I think a lot of people will be interested to hear about how LBB started, but how you kind of come to this point and how that's been. And I recently just quit advertising. I have, as of a few days ago, officially announced that I've quit advertising. I actually quit advertising early August, but I only officially announced it now. And as of the 1st of November onwards, not in that space anymore. So advertising truly is dead in my
Oh my God, I was going to say
landscape.
The same joke. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But to be fair, that was an easy joke to tee off.
Yes.
But yes.
So yes, I think to kick off, what is your story? How did you land up here?
Land up where? Today on this episode?
Not on this podcast. How did LBB start?
And, oh my God. We're going to start.
And if
from
you go
then.
if you go from what you set out to create rather, and what you ended up creating, what was that transition? What are the things that stayed the same? What are the things that changed?
So I'm going to speak really fast because I don't want this episode to go on for longer than like an hour. But basically, LBB started as a side hustle. I started as a Tumblr blog when I was working with the BBC. And the reason why it started as a side hustle was because I'm born and brought up in Delhi. Ironically, I've been wanting to get out of Delhi my whole entire life. But because the BBC pays well, I thought, chalo, I have no reason to leave. Let me just stay here, but figure out ways to make the city more interesting for me. And I'd, go to different places every weekend, and I'd basically take pictures of these places and put up a blog on my Tumblr page about this new cool like local discovery that I made, and that Tumblr page became a website. The website grew even more. It expanded to an app, and essentially like obviously LBB has changed significantly as a platform compared to where it started. I don't think we've changed in our mission. I think our mission on the consumer side has always been, how do you use dopamine and delight to inspire consumers to make choices? And I know that sounds loose, but people say we're a content platform. I disagree. I think we do so much more than, just give people information, because, through LBB, you can do everything from attend events to, win freebies to, you can play fun games to discover new brands on our app and our web. There's so much that we do to, bring the joy of discovery to consumers, which, and I think a lot of what we wanted to recreate is that joy that I had, right, of walking into a store in the middle of nowhere and just being like, holy shit, this is so cool. I can't believe no one knows that this exists, right? Yeah. I think our journey's been, we've had our own shares of ups and downs, but when I reflect on where we are at today, especially in the context of our acquisition, first and foremost, to build a company and get it to a stage where a large, where we ended up becoming India's, and let's be honest, most successful public stock of the past, 365 days. We've ended up becoming their first consumer tech acquisition is like not an easy feat, right? In India, no company does claps for herself. No,
I
but like
in
India,
silently clap.
Thanks, man. But like in India, M&A is not big, and it's this like gross like cockroach mentality that we have, right? Which is like, if I succeed, it means other people need to fail. Versus like M&A is a lot about how do you come together and solve category problems or consumer problems much more carefully. And I think the reason why obviously like the Nykaa partnership to me makes a lot of sense is because both of us have very similar missions, right? We are very top 30, 40 million consumers oriented. We both solve for categories where desire has to be created. Categories like, makeup, skincare outside of maybe personal care, fashion, home decor, so on and so forth. They're not they're not need categories, right? They're want categories. For want categories, and you've seen this in advertising, right? You need storytelling, you need like vehicles of conversations to drive conversion and purchases, which, we obviously know how to do. So in under 4 minutes, that's where we started, and here's where we are.
Well done. And I think it's also interesting that just the journey, right? Because the questions I always end up having with platforms, especially, is that, because of how the market changes, it's very easy for you to kind of evolve towards what's required. And that's oftentimes takes you in directions where you didn't necessarily want to go, but the market decided. But you kind of stuck to that gun. Like, the first time we interacted was when I was hosting something for you guys.
Yeah, in 2020.
But I would always see stuff from the platform there, and I'd go on to it, kind of check for, because I like to shop. So I went to search for a bunch of stuff on the platform earlier as well. That part has not changed.
Yeah.
For me, like that's the ethos of that, and that's what stays core. And I want to ask you that question, like what's kind of changed and what stays the same. What else do I want to ask you? I actually want to ask you something very interesting. Is that how did you ever see yourself as an entrepreneur? Was that something you wanted to do? Was something you always set out to be? Or was this one of those like, okay, I'm doing this blog is going in this direction, it basically means I'm an entrepreneur? Was that how it happened?
I think like for me, it was a lot of the latter. And even today, right, I don't like, when I look at myself, I don't really see like a quote unquote entrepreneur or a professional or, whatever.
You do not want to be a unicorn?
Oh God, no, definitely not. Not that I don't, have the desires to want to build a large company. And hence also a reason for us to want to work with Nykaa, right? Where, you always want to be a part of something big, right? Whether it's you as someone who's built it or, through modes and ways of mergers and acquisitions. But I don't know, man, I get a lot of joy out of work. Like it's absurd that we spend Saturday afternoons, as two, let's be honest, like strangers, right? Like we have no like shared contact apart from work that we enjoy, right? So for me, like I think doing good work has been at the core of what I want to be known for. And whether that, manifests in the form of entrepreneurship or it manifests, in the form of, being amazing at my job, which I was at, at the BBC or at Bizcraft, or like in anything that I've honestly done in my life. For me, that is sacrosanct. And that's something that I never want to screw around with. So my core is just like, I just get a lot of joy by creating really good things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Has that changed post-acquisition? Because there's this common notion, right? Oh, acquisition's done, which means founders suddenly, there is the quote-unquote Amiri has entered life, or now it's a relaxed thing because you have, now it's like a job, or you the hunger is gone away. You hear terms like that thrown around post-acquisition. I know I have heard those as well. But have you seen yourself change how you function post, or is it pretty much been the same?
I think not at all, man. I think, the things that I really hated about my job as like, quote-unquote co-founder, CEO of LBB was this whole like rat race of, running after VCs, amping up your valuation, getting to this cycle of like raising money. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it, but it requires a certain type of like frame of mind that a person needs to be in. And I don't think like I think I ran out of interest in that frame of mind, specifically, in the past like 3-4 years of running LBB, because I, like at my core, like I said, right, like I like building things. And when I say I like building things, like, it's kind of like playing with Lego, right? Like it's more fun building Lego than going to a store to buy Lego. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that. Like, I know it's a really shitty analogy, but that's the closest that I'll get to it. So for me, this partnership with Nykaa has actually given me more room to work on things that I like doing. I've genuinely thought very deeply about, everything from content community as a conduit to commerce. I've had less stress in my life about the things associated with managing large teams, running a business, so on and so forth. I'm not saying the stress has totally gone away, but you know what I mean? The thing that's more unnerving about that stress has gone away. And now there's joy back in my work, man. I just feel much more happy and excited, and I'm 200%. But enough about me, man. I want to switch gears to you because this is
let's make it about me. Let's make it about me.
Oh my God,
yes,
let's make it about
time.
No, so I think a couple of things, man. Apart from your midlife crisis, what prompted you to step out of advertising? The reason why I ask you this is because obviously Advertising is Dead is a super popular podcast. The Glitch is a very well established company. You guys were acquired by WPP. You know what I mean? You'd assume that this is the point in your life where you'd want to coast because you've got this large companies under a large umbrella. You've got popularity through the lens of a creator. Why throw yourself off a bridge again?
So I'd say till about 2020, I was on that same track. Saw myself sticking on for a long term and look at my career in that sense of the word. Till the last couple of years, I've also re-evaluated what I want to do in life. And I don't necessarily want to build another company. I don't want to go after global career or get into, those are all thoughts in my head outside 2019, 2020. Kind of sat down and said, okay, one second, is that what I really want to do? Or if I have the opportunity now, what if I don't do any of those things? Just focus on the few things which I'm genuinely passionate about, curious about, and just kind of do those. So do podcasts, create content, see how I can give value in that sense of the word, not put too much pressure on myself. And that's one of the prime reasons. And also it was something which we worked towards, point of view which Rohit and I had from the start. And I know Pooja synced up to that very immediately as soon as she came on. And she came on pretty early in our journey. She came out, I think, year 3, if I remember right. And we never wanted to be a founder/executive leadership driven business. We wanted to have a widespread leadership core. And I remember this, we would do these yearly leadership catch-ups, and there used to be about 6-8 people there. And then one year we decided to just scale it up. We went from 8 people to 25 people in leadership, spread things out, put people on things. And now a lot of those people have we worked on making sure they got elevated within the system. They had really prominent roles, not just at Glitch, but across the network as well. So they're all doing really well. We all evaluated what you want to do in life. Rohit's setting off and starting another startup, and he's going back into the grind. I am now looking at life in a very different way. I also feel I feel every journey has its point. And for me, it was I've done what I had to do here. Is this necessarily what is super exciting to me right now? Is something which I really want to do right now? It wasn't. And it's a good time to step away when you're at that point, when you know the system can move without you. Everything's in place. We spent a year putting this together to make sure we transitioned at this point of time. And so the exit was smooth. Nothing from a functional standpoint is affected, which was the idea. And also feel that I'm going back to my roots. I started off as a content production person, which is what I started off as back in MTV and Channel V. Glitch was never intended to be an agency. We were a production company, which became an agency. So I'm going back to production, but this time more. I don't think I want to start a company. I don't necessarily even want to have a team which is more than I don't want double-digit employees on my creative front as well. I'm sticking to those rules for some time. I also want to live in shorts and wear linens. And living the creator life is interesting. Just starting work on my second book as well. So lots happening.
Wow, look at you. On a personal note, right? And I wish more founders spoke about this, but how has your relationship with money changed over the past, couple of years? Because obviously advertising and even production for that matter is not, you need to really put in blood, sweat, tears for you to start seeing cash money come in through the door, right? And first couple of years of entrepreneurship are always fairly tough. Of course, you guys had a great exit. I'm sure you made bank over the past couple of years. So how has your relationship with money changed over, as you reflect on your journey?
So I had this really funny thing that happened to me. I went on someone's I forget if it's a podcast or it was some YouTube video, and the guy said, and this guy has this format where he asks questions in an interrogation format. He said, "What is the most expensive thing that you have bought that you regret?" And in this tone, I said, "A pair of sneakers." And he's like, "How expensive were those?" I said, 15,000 rupees. He's like, "What?" I'm like, "No, that is seriously the biggest expense I have made that I regret, because I don't think me spending money has become like, I suddenly haven't gone and started buying like really expensive things. The most expensive thing I would have bought in life was to buy a house, but that was more an emotional decision than a let's splurge decision. But how has it changed? I feel that through the glitch journey, we never knew acquisitions were even a thing. We never knew that. We just want to make sure we hit salary. We were growing in that sense. Till we started getting approached, I would say halfway through. I think by about year 6, year 7 is when we started getting approached, if I remember right, but maybe even year 5. And we started working towards how that could help us beyond just individual money, but for the company. So I've always had a different way to look at money from a business standpoint and from a personal standpoint. Personal, I've always been like, let's no nonsense investing, if at all, if I invested. So I do an SIP here and there, not really over splurge money. I'm reasonably cheap as a person in terms of just spending. I'm not one of those who go out and like splurge money for random reasons. But on the business front, I was always like, let's focus on what can help growth. But that's changed for us post-acquisition from a business standpoint, because you suddenly had someone behind you who had a financial system in place. And you plug into that, it just makes the business more secure, your systems, your processes. That's one of the core things we wanted. We wanted like stuff like financial practices, legal, all of that to really compliance to be a strong part of our business, which we were doing in our way, but we didn't have the experience to kind of do that right. And advertising can get complicated on that front. So that's one thing. But on a personal front, to be honest, the first time you make that big check of money, I did what anybody should do, is I take a screenshot of my bank statement of that one thing coming.
I should have done that.
I took a screenshot and I was like, just kept that aside and then put that money into like an investment for the long term, and still lived exactly the way I lived before, except for a few things here and there that so we ended up buying a house and obviously securing a bunch of things for family, etc. But no major random splurges, except for the fact that I do a little more often upgrade my phone than I used to, which is basically, I went from like every 2 years to almost every year kind of a scenario. Yeah, that's the only thing. But I don't think that's changed too much. And people keep asking me about money advice, and I'm like, just find someone smart, at least 2 sets of professionals who are strong investment people, and just invest with them. Don't fall for every second offer that comes.
Yes, and don't get tempted by Instagram ads. Last question for you, man. I think the one reason why I like genuinely thoroughly enjoy doing this, with you is I just feel like you're a really good role model for a lot of your listeners. There's all types of like masculinity that exists, right? And as, a female specifically in tech, I can tell you that there are, multiple rungs of masculinity that get flung in your face, from time to time. But I think the reason why, I think there needs to be more role models like you for especially young Indian men is because, you've got this like really strong sense of, you're very like secure with who you are. You're also very secure about, having badass wife who is CEO of a company that, you and your co-founder started, and who's grown from strength to strength, at the Glitch and now at, WPP's other arm. I always keep up the acronym VMY.
VMLYNR. It's a long one. It's complicated.
Yeah, and I think even with our conversations, right? Like it's never been a मैं आपसे बड़ा हूँ, मैं आपको सिखाता. You know what I mean? Like you're just a really like secure, confident about where you're at in your life. So 2 quick questions for you. Have you always been like this? And the second is, especially for like young listeners who are tuning in, who are, 18 to 24, have all of these very like complex, weird, role models cropping up. What do you think the idea of masculinity really is?
I don't think it's ever been a gender. Oh, heavy question. This is the nicest thing you have ever said to me, by the way. In 1 year.
Enjoy it while it lasts. Never coming back to this show ever again.
So here's the thing. I don't think it's a gender thing for me as much as I've always just tried. I genuinely feel the need to be nice to a fault sometimes because I just do too much to be a people pleaser. It's been a problem when I go people pleasing in that sense of the word. But I always found that being decent is one of the best things you can do. Not just because you have to be, but I think it makes you feel much nicer. And it kind of showed for me, I think the last 3-4 days for me, post me announcing have been supremely humbling, right? Because everything from messages to comments on social posts, etc., have been stories which I don't remember, but people do. Like someone who said when she was an intern and she'd come down from Bangalore and it was her first Bombay rains and she was feeling homesick, and I sent her rava upma saying, you're missing Bangalore, so this is like home food, have it. And I don't remember it. I have no recollection of sending that to her. And she remembers it till date. And that was like, what? Easy, like 5-6 years ago. Or someone else who remembered that my interview with her was about 15 minutes and I said, no, we're hiring you. And she's literally right now like one of the biggest, strongest leaders we have. And small things, like small people, like small incidents of things that have happened. Someone who's kind of ass got saved and I didn't, even though they lost money for the company, but I kind of like, so I'm not covering for you. We'll discuss what went wrong, but I'm not jumping on you as the reaction. My reaction is how do we move forward from this? So it's always been my process to be that way. I'm very like, let's look forward and see what happens next. Try to be decent has been my thing. I don't believe in throwing ego at people. I've always been averse to that. I'm the opposite. I will underplay myself more than that is what I've been told. But I've never been this open about how I function. I feel the last 2-3 years, just creating content, being a lot more out there on social has been a great for me to feel comfortable with talking about this is how I am. And I'm very okay being that. Like I enjoy being a dad. I was playing with glitter glue a little while ago and it's super fun. I'm like, glad to talk about playing with glitter glue, man. It's entertaining. I get my fingernails painted half the time by my daughter and I think it's fun as long as I can take it off at some level. But you don't have to worry about talking about those things. I feel it naturally happened to me. It's never been I have to be this way. I have, however, and my worry with the word role model oftentimes is, have I done stupid, shitty things that guys do when you're growing up? Yes, I have. We've all said the wrong jokes. We all said things which in hindsight, or acted in just like this the way guys end up talking because you think that's the way guys need to talk. But at some point there is a point at which that goes from being juvenile to being just a dick. And thankfully, I feel I made the right friends and I surrounded myself with the right people at that transition point, because there was a point of time in life when I was veering towards becoming a bit of a dick. And thankfully, that did not happen. Because I saw that as the way guys have to be. And you sometimes don't know any better, but I also credit friends, and also you need to find the right partner who tells you off when you are going the wrong route. And Pooja is that for me. Like she'll call me out on if I'm making something about myself, if I'm making something about me being self-deprecating or having too much ego, or just generally trying to be a bit of like veering towards douche. She will call me out saying, this is what you're doing. And not in like a don't do it. Like, this is what you're doing. You should realize that.
Recognize it.
And you need to have that person or people like that in your life. And I thankfully have many of those. So that's why I'm function like this. But I'm happy to hear it shows that I try to be decent.
Yes, Queen. And with that, our heart to heart is over, ladies and gents.
Kya segment hai? These segments.
My God. Aansu aa gaye.
I think it's a good thing we did it after a year. It wouldn't have been as nice if we did it at the start of the show a year ago. And we've fine, jealous me. I know it's more than an hour. It's okay.
Jealous me, just like, I don't give a shit about your heart to heart.
It's a Saturday. I want to go party right now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's okay. She's saying carry on. But anyway, guys, we'll go for a break now. We'll be back with the last segment of Think Fast. And advertising is dead. Yes, both shows in one. Kya package. Welcome back to Think Fast, where advertising is dead. Where I think what we'll do is, you've been on advertising is dead a while back, though. I think it's been a bit of actually quite a while. If I remember right, you were in the late 80s episodes of Advertising is Dead. Now that show's in its late 180s, so over 100 episodes ago, in that sense, if I remember right. And I don't know if you remember the questions which I normally ask all my guests in the last segment. So we'll do that. And what do you spend a lot of time doing?
Bro, don't forget.
Yes, and recommendations. Recommendations are part of what I ask in Advertising is Dead also. So the good part is it all syncs together.
Lovely.
What do you spend a lot of time doing outside of podcasting and LBB that keeps you excited and going? What's your thing to kind of jump into? Release.
I genuinely really enjoy like architecture and interiors, and I feel like my taste and my eye has become exponentially better than it was when I just stumbled into like enjoying, all things design. And for me, I don't know, man, like, I thoroughly enjoy being creative, and it's very tempting to be glued to your phone, you know what I mean? And like browsing Pinterest and Instagram 24/7 or just being hit with news and information 24/7. But for me, I make sense of the chaos through, my like tryst with architecture, interiors, design, and the like. So that's my like one big release and also my one big indulgence.
Actually, I've never answered this question myself. And while I asked us, it might be interesting to answer it, is what have I... so I weirdly enough like to study stuff around mindfulness, psychology, and also pick up really random things. Like there is one thing which at some point of time on this show I shall use is I have just bought myself a ukulele, which I'm going to start learning. True midlife crisis is happening. I've got a ukulele.
Guys, somebody save Varun. Call Pooja. SOS.
But yeah, I like to experiment learning newer things. And for some reason, this whole like the mindfulness, mental fitness side of things has been super interesting for me. I've actually signed up for 2 courses, which I'm in the process of trying to finish before March, because the deadline for both is that time. One is a course on happiness out of Harvard, and one which is a course on the science of well-being, which is from Yale. So hopefully by March I'll finish both.
Oh my God, are you going to add them to your LinkedIn bio?
Actually. Imagine that. I will have that on my bio as well. LinkedIn mein add hoga ye sab.
The best is people who like will do like a 1-day course on Coursera from Harvard and will say graduated with a degree from Harvard University, and just like, please.
So I'll just explain. My happiness course is off of one of the courses is actually off of Coursera, but it's certified because you have to submit assignments and you pay for it separately. So I'm just like,
okay, whatever helps you sleep at night. Whatever helps you legitimize your addition to your LinkedIn bio. But moving to recommendations, what do you recommend?
Yes, what do you recommend this week? Except for your apart from your song.
Okay, guys, if you want a banger to help you survive the rest of this week and also to help you enjoy all things festive season, you have to hear this song, Jalasmi. Let's add it to our show notes. It is a mashup of Brown Munde and Peaches by Justin Bieber, and it is fantastic.
Does it then become Peach Munde?
Yeah, no, it's called Peach Munde, bro. Oh. It's called Peach Monday. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. So that will be my, funsies recommendation for the week. What about you?
I don't know if I recommended this book before. It's called Joyful. Have I recommended this before? I feel you will enjoy this. Because
you're too woke, yaar. I can't. Like I just can't.
No. It uses psychology, all that stuff, but it basically also adds to color science. So how you do up your interiors, how can they make you? How can certain things make you feel more joyful in your surroundings by the things and the colors you put in your surroundings? So considering your architecture interioring, so this one is very interesting for that. Hence, I picked this. I said, "Arey, I just started to like rummage through it, and I didn't realize that was the biggest part of the book till I bought it. And it's super interesting, just like color science and like how like things like plants help, how certain colors help in certain areas of the house, and so it's super interesting to dig into. What else? What can you put together in an instant?
Nothing. Peanut butter and toast. What about you?
What can I put in an instant? I can put together a bad joke in an instant.
Oh, yes, of course. I will attest to that. Yes, the worser the joke you need, ladies and gents, please call Mr. Dugirala for help.
Yes. And with that ends this crossover. I will not ask the final question, which is generally a play on the name of Advertising is Dead, because as of this week, for me, career-wise, advertising is actually dead. So let's see how that progresses.
But it's going to be great. We wish you all the best. Next week onwards, back to regular
programming on both the shows.
Yes.
And till then, toodles and see you later.
Bye, guys.